All right, so we're diving into some flirting tactics today. The kind of stuff that promises to make you like irresistible, you know?
Yeah.
But we're not just gonna like list off techniques. We're gonna try to unpack like the psychology behind it all and see how these principles, I guess, could apply to like anyone, really. If they're trying to connect with someone else, build that chemistry.
It's really interesting. This source is like clearly aimed at guys,
Hmm.
but it does touch on some pretty universal truths about like how we interact as humans.
Okay, so first tactic, playful disqualification.
Playful disqualification. Okay.
I like that. Basically, it's like flipping the script, right? Like you jokingly suggest that you're not impressed. So they give this example. You and I could never get along. You're way too stubborn.
Hmm.
Is that supposed to like work?
Well, I mean, think about it.
Yeah.
Most people, especially when it comes to flirting, they're used to compliments, right? So when you kind of playfully disqualify yourself, you create this like challenge. It makes you stand out. You pique their curiosity. It actually taps into this thing called reactance theory, where people are more drawn to what seems, just out of reach.
Okay, so it's kind of like playing hard to get, like the forbidden fruit kind of thing.
Exactly. It's like telling someone, you can't have this. And then suddenly they want it even more.
But isn't there a risk, though? I mean, with this playful disqualification, couldn't you come off as just mean?
Oh, for sure. Tone is like everything with this. It has to be playful, lighthearted, delivered with a smile,
Yeah.
or like a knowing glance. It's like a nudge, not a shove.
Okay, nudge, not a shove. I like that.
If it's done right, it just creates a sense of intrigue.
Right.
It makes the other person kind of want to prove you wrong.
So it's about finding that sweet spot between playful teasing and genuine interest. Otherwise, you're just going to turn people off, right?
Exactly. You got to get that balance right. And you know what's really interesting? This principle, it goes beyond flirting. Think about like negotiations. Sometimes downplaying your interest, like strategically, can actually give you a stronger position.
Huh, so you're like subtly shifting the power dynamic.
Right. And even though this source like frames it in this romantic context, the psychology behind it, it can apply to anything where you're trying to, create that spark of intrigue.
Yeah.
Or desire, I guess.
Okay, that's pretty cool. Now, the second tactic they talk about is reversing the roles, which is basically you act as though the other person is pursuing you. The example they give, though, is pretty bold. Whoa, stop undressing me with your eyes.
I mean, isn't that a bit much?
Yeah, I mean, it definitely depends on the context and like the rapport you have with the person.
Right.
But the idea is about playful confidence. You're turning the tables, making the other person feel kind of caught in a playful way.
Caught admiring you.
Yeah, exactly.
But how do you not come off as like arrogant?
Yeah, it's a fine line for sure. Yeah.
Confidence versus arrogance.
Oh,
You got to deliver it with a wink and a smile,
okay.
Almost like you're both in on the joke.
Got it. Okay, so let's say you're not in like an overtly flirtatious situation. How would you adapt this reversing the roles thing? Like, let's say you're at a professional networking event or something.
Okay, well, instead of assuming like romantic interest, you assume shared enthusiasm. Like you could say something like, you must be a fellow data geek judging by that spreadsheet you're working on.
So you're still flipping the script.
Yeah.
But in a way that's more, inclusive. And it's focused on like a common interest.
Exactly.
I like it. Okay, challenge accepted. So tactic number 3, push-pull. Now this one makes me a little uncomfortable, to be honest.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, the source describes it as like alternating between showing interest and disinterest to like create this emotional tension.
Oh, I see.
And the example they give is like, you're so cute, I hate you.
Wow.
That's a little extreme. It seems kind of like playing games with someone's emotions, doesn't it?
You're right. Yeah, it can definitely come across as manipulative. If it's done poorly, for sure.
So how do you avoid crossing that line?
Well, the key is to remember that the pull, the genuine interest and connection, that should always be there. Like you're not just constantly pushing them away.
Right.
You're also drawing them back in.
Okay, so how do we make this push-pull thing more ethical,
There you
more authentic?
Well, think of it in terms of creating like a dynamic conversation. You wouldn't just bombard someone with constant praise or agreement, right?
Yep, get old pretty fast. Yeah.
Exactly. It would get boring.
Yeah.
In any interaction, whether it's flirting or just talking, a little bit of push-pull can keep things interesting. Instead of showering someone with compliments, you might like playfully challenge their opinion. or tease them gently.
Just add a little spice to the conversation.
Precisely.
Okay, so it's not about being mean or playing hard to get. It's more about creating a dynamic that keeps both people engaged, right?
Okay.
This is getting interesting. We've gone from like cheesy pickup lines to like a deeper understanding of how connection actually works.
And we're just getting started. It's fascinating how these tactics, which initially seem so specific, about flirting,
Yeah.
they actually tap into these broader communication principles
Yeah.
that we can use anywhere.
Yeah, and before we get too carried away with all the psychology, I do want to point out that these tactics, as they're presented in the source, they're very clearly aimed at a heterosexual male audience.
Oh, absolutely. The language, the examples, it all reflects certain assumptions about gender roles in dating that we need to be aware of.
So how do we take these principles then and apply them in a way that feels authentic and respectful across different situations, different audiences?
Now that's where things get really interesting. Because at the end of the day, any interaction, whether you're flirting, networking, just having a conversation, it all hinges on a few key things: authenticity, respect, and being able to read social cues.
So it's not just about mastering the techniques, it's about developing those core social skills that allow you to connect with people in a genuine way.
Exactly. And that's what we'll be diving into next. So before the break, we were talking about how these flirting tactics, they actually highlight some really important communication principles.
Yeah, we're trying to find like the universal truths in all this. That could help anyone become a better communicator,
Exactly. And one of the most important skills, no matter what the situation is being able to read social cues.
I never really thought about it that way. But it makes total sense. Like, you could have the most brilliant line, the perfect tactic, but if you deliver it at the wrong time or to the wrong person, it's gonna fall flat.
It's like a comedian, right? They have to read the room. You got to be constantly paying attention to how the other person is reacting, not just what they say, but their body language too.
So it's not just about what you say, it's about how you say it, and even more importantly, how the other person is receiving it, right?
Right. Are they leaning in, making eye contact? Are they engaged? Or are they looking away, giving you closed-off body language? Those little signals tell you a lot.
It's almost like a dance, You're both responding to each other's moods.
I love that analogy, because flirting, or any kind of connection really, it is about creating a shared experience.
And that takes being present in the moment, not just running through a mental checklist of tactics.
Exactly. It's about being genuinely interested in the other person, responding authentically to what they're putting out there, and letting the interaction just unfold organically.
It's amazing to me how this goes way beyond just flirting. These principles apply to like any interaction where you're trying to build rapport.
You're so right. Think about it. Winning over a client, impressing your boss, even just having a more meaningful conversation with a friend. These skills are essential.
So it's not about memorizing lines or tricks. It's about understanding human interaction on a deeper level.
Exactly. And the more you practice these skills, the more natural they become.
It's like you develop an intuition.
Yeah. You start to just know how to read people.
Yeah.
And how to adjust your style based on that.
You become like a social chameleon.
That's a great way to put it.
So how do we actually develop these skills? Like, where do we start?
Well, the first step is just to pay more attention. Next time you're talking to someone, really focus on their body language, their tone of voice, their energy.
Become a detective of human behavior.
Exactly.
Oh.
Look for those subtle clues. And as you start to pick up on them, you can adjust your communication accordingly.
It's a constant feedback loop.
Right.
So you're not trying to control the interaction, you're just becoming more attuned to it.
Exactly.
I'm starting to see how all of this ties back to those flirting tactics we talked about. They were really just a starting point, weren't they?
Yeah, they were like a gateway
Yeah.
into this much deeper understanding of how we connect as humans.
And the best part is, this is something anyone can learn.
Absolutely.
It's not about being born with some special gift. It's about being willing to pay attention, to experiment, to learn.
And the more you do it, the more confident you'll become.
As we're talking, I keep thinking about how all of this could be applied in a professional context.
That's a great point.
Yeah.
And it's something we're going to explore in more detail right after this.
Okay, so we've been talking about how these, flirting tactics, I guess you could call them, can actually help us communicate better in all kinds of situations.
Yeah, it's not just about romance. It's about understanding how to connect with people in a way that's engaging and, maybe a little bit playful.
Right, like using playful disqualification.
Yeah.
Or reversing the roles.
Exactly. Those are just examples of like broader dynamics that can help you build rapport.
And you were saying before how this could even be helpful at work,
Oh, absolutely.
like in a professional setting.
Yeah, think about it. Giving a presentation, negotiating a deal, even just trying to connect with your colleagues. Creating that sense of playful tension, a little bit of intrigue, it can make a huge difference.
So how would you translate these tactics, like, into a boardroom, for example?
Okay, let's take playful disqualification. Instead of using it to suggest you're not interested romantically, you can use it to, I don't know, project a sense of humility. Make yourself more approachable.
I see.
Like you could start a presentation by saying, well, I'm definitely not the expert here, but I'm excited to share some ideas with you all.
So you're not coming in like a know-it-all.
Right.
Wow.
You're inviting people to participate.
It's more collaborative.
Exactly.
And it's funny because by admitting you don't know everything, you might actually come across as more confident.
It's counterintuitive, isn't it?
Yeah.
But it works because you're being genuine, relatable.
Okay, that makes sense. Now, what about reversing the roles? How would you use that in a professional setting?
Okay. So instead of assuming attraction, you assume shared goals, objectives. Like let's say you're in a negotiation. Instead of just focusing on what you want, you could say something like, I'm really interested in understanding your priorities and finding a solution that works for both of us.
So you're shifting the focus from competition to collaboration.
Exactly.
I like it.
You're creating a sense of partnership, working together towards a common goal.
Much better than trying to bully someone into getting your way.
Right.
And I guess push-pull in a professional setting would be about finding that balance between being assertive and being open to feedback.
Yeah. It's about being confident in your expertise, but also willing to listen and learn from others.
So it all comes back to being more mindful, doesn't it? More intentional in how we communicate.
That's it. It's about moving beyond those automatic responses and really choosing how we want to interact with people.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, what's the one thing you want our listeners to take away from all of this?
I want them to realize that communication is a skill, just like anything else. You can learn it, you can develop it.
It's not some magical talent you're born with.
Right. It's about practice, paying attention, experimenting.
And the more you do it, the better you'll get. So whether you're looking for love, trying to close a deal, or just having a better conversation with a friend, the principles we've talked about today can really make a difference.
Absolutely.
And most importantly,
be yourself. Let your personality shine through. Don't be afraid to have fun with it.
well said. That's all the time we have for today. Thanks for joining us. And happy connecting, everyone!